This is the kind of game that every few years I just sort of get back into and get really weirdly engrossed in for like 3 days, and it's like the only thing that I end up playing for like a whole weekend. It's not even like a particularly amazing game by any standards, but the whole game just has this very strange, uncanny atmosphere. It's very empty and slightly unsettling. Call it canopsia, maybe call it dreamlike, but I just personally think it's pretty damn cool. And it turns this budget PS2 theme park sim into this weird liminal space builder game. Not the intended purpose, of course, but it's what gets me so interested in this one. Rollercoaster World on PlayStation 2. Because its very sparse, bland visuals aside, this game works differently, very differently to most other theme park games you would know, in the sense that everything you build isn't really limited to like a grid. You can pretty much move things and place them anywhere that you like within obviously the allotted field that you have. You can rotate them fully, you can move them like tiny pixel by pixel, however you like. It's really a great sort of game if you find it satisfying to organize things. And it's clearly a very basic sort of theme park builder, but from this basicness you have a lot of freedom, and there's nothing stopping you from just placing item on top of item, overlapping them as much as you please, and the way that items can change their appearance from the tiniest little thing being placed alongside them or even inside the object means that you can get really creative with this. It's just like pure freedom. And with enough limitation on the side that it still kinda gets a weird part of your brain working. There really isn't all that many objects. There's like 10 different buildings, maybe like 12 rides, like trees, benches, really basic stuff, not even really theme park specific as well. But it's just like the freedom it gives you, you can just go nuts. It's just like pure creativity. It's really basic, sure, but because of how basic it is, you can get really creative with just like layering and meshing things together. Or you can put buildings inside of other buildings to make like long, weird streets. You can align all the shop windows to make them look like makeshift tunnels for the coasters. You can fence off certain areas to make like little parks within the park. You could just make a forest if you wanted to. You can just trail streetlights along the side of paths or anywhere. You can just go nuts, and honestly the game inspires a real strange kind of maddening creativity in me. And really just trying to build things is fun in this game. You don't have to make the environment look like a theme park, as much as it's obviously tailored for that. It's quite impressive that no matter how many objects you put on the screen at once, it doesn't really seem to slow down the game, so that's quite impressive, honestly. Even though this is one of those PS2 games that's like really noisy while it's running in the console, I think it's because it came on like these blue discs for some batshit reason. Like were these ones cheaper, less storage space? Like you know these blue discs you get with like budget PS2 games. How are they different from regular discs? I want to know, but you know the ones that make your PS2 sound like a fucking washing machine. But why? Why do they work like that? Why use these ones? How are they different? I want to know. Still, the only real performance issue was this weird glitch where if you put too many trees down, the camera can get stuck facing permanently downwards, and you need to like reset the console for that. But you know, that's more a problem on my end, I think. But yeah, this is just one of these games where no one really seems to remember it very much. I found some people on Reddit talking about how the game creeped them out when they were kids, so I mean, I'm glad I'm not the only one. But that's mainly what drew me back to this one as well, that it's just this weird feeling it has throughout, this really mysterious kind of atmosphere. Don't get me wrong, I love it, but there's something very uncanny and quite empty feeling about this game as well. But like I say, the actual building of the theme park is very basic, but they just let you go nuts with it and give you loads of freedom, and I really love all the daytime. You can change the time of day between daytime, evening time, which has pretty nasty, really harsh looking lighting, and then there's nighttime, which is absolutely gorgeous, and I think where this game visually shines the best, because everything, all the buildings and attractions have completely different models for the nighttime free walking sections, and they look just incredible. I love these. I could just spend hours just making things and just looking at them, looking at the movement of the lights. Looks gorgeous. The way just like the lights mesh together in the distance, like the distant attractions, like it's really weirdly immersive for me. But yeah, I think my favourite object to work with here is easily the streetlights, because you can just put this thing up anywhere and immediately everything else around it just looks so fucking cool. You know, veering much more into the dreamlike atmosphere rather than the uncanny one. And most of the park's attractions can sort of be interacted with, although that mostly just involves like they move the game's first person camera to like the moving part of the ride. But I mean, you know, it does the job. But you can interact with all the stalls and stuff, and like you need to buy tickets from the ticket vending machine if you want to ride anything. That's fun, going back and forth just to buy like things that cost next to nothing. You can also buy food and drink for some reason. I wish I knew why. It just sort of makes like a gulp sound or like a slurp sound. I really don't get it. And if you interact with the vending machines, you can find singular coins. Like the game's in-game currency, you can find one of them if you interact with the vending machine, per interaction of course. So you know, if your debt's really eating you up, then just keep fucking tapping away at that vending machine, and you can buy items in the shops to use in the free walk mode, which is running shoes, jumping shoes, and yeah, a jetpack. Just buy the jetpack. I mean, ignore the safety implications of selling jetpacks to just like random fucking people. A jetpack mode is cool. You just fly, you just go up, and you can land on anything, which is really weird. So it's quite nice for just sort of like looking, just like observing over everything. It's quite cool. Quite a cool sensation. Very nice sort of weight to it has. What you might notice though in the auditory department is the constant screaming of like the coasters, the rides. Is it annoying? Worrying? Arousing? I'm not sure. I'll leave that to you to decide, but I kind of wish I turned it off actually when recording this. As well as the time of day settings, you can choose between some backgrounds. There's like two city ones which look really flat. You can set your park in like the middle of the fucking like Gobi desert if you want to. There's like a mountain range. I think that's probably my favourite looking one. You can just wash up the islands. There's like an island one. There's a forest one. They're very barren looking background locations, but they add to the game's sort of liminal feel. And I love the fucking desert one just because, you know, you gotta have a theme park in the middle of the godforsaken motherfucking Atacama desert. And you know, you can also mess around with the colour of the coasters, and you can change your music tracks in the pause menu. There's like 30 of them, and they're all quite something. They range mostly from like 10-second loops to like stock sounding EDM, some truly epic MIDI rock, just legit like Wii menu music. Some of it's really relaxing, and honestly some of the background music is genuinely really quite interesting and really adds into the sparse, uncanny feeling of the game. It just perfects the experience, I think. Certainly going on the Hot Tub playlist, no doubt. Or can't go not naming your parks things that are goofy and funny, because that's just the kind of thing I do. But as I've been getting on for this, the game's ambience is really like the selling point to me. Like, it's just the dull, muted colours, everything is just such a dull, muted colour, and then there's just random parts of the environment and the buildings. They're really bright, and they sort of seem much more alive. Like it looks, everything looks bland enough to be realistic, but also too spacious to be immersive and to be believable, if that makes any sense. And like the indistinct chatter sounds in the background, like it makes it feel and sound like there is activity and people here, and it looks like a populated place, like a city or a theme park, but it just never feels like there's any living thing here, and that's what makes this game just feel so empty and so sort of canopic. I hope that's a word. It should be. I'm calling that my word if it's not. Yeah, just the type of game that's just nice to just explore and to just be in. Like watching all like the rides go in the background, just listening to the background noise. It is a very ambient kind of game, I think. And watching the coasters go by in the background is pretty cool as well. You sort of get to see your coaster designs come to life in a sense. And while I'm here, I should actually mention the coaster building itself, which is absolutely seems to be the focal point of the game. It's definitely the most impressive and mechanical part of the game, the most game-like part, if you will. It's very intuitive, but allows for so much creativity with your track designs. Because there are 3 game modes. Management mode is where you can build coasters, and that's where you have all the stuff I've been talking about so far. I'd consider it the game's main mode. But challenge mode is sort of the main gamey modes. Management mode's more just like an ambient, like sort of theme park manager, not really too intensive gameplay wise. But challenge mode is where the bulk of the game lies. So yeah, it's like there are 5 challenges to beat. And that might not sound like much, but they are really very hard, because you've got to be very specific. They have some very certain requirements that you have to meet. So you really got to know how to build these tracks to their very demanding specifications. Now the view might be confusing at first during the coaster building, but it's basically just 4 different camera angles that show off the parts of the track that you'll want to be seeing midway through placing your track parts. You should focus on the top left, because that's where the track is most prominent, and that's the easiest part to start from looking. And really, you can just bend and morph the track in any way you desire. It's sort of like this ever-growing snake whose head you can fully control and twist into all angles and shapes. There's some pre-built special parts you can insert, but they're mostly just loops and corkscrews, stuff that's very general and would have just been, kind of untidy looking and a bit awkward if you'd made it yourself. But yeah, you also can't get too creative with the coaster designs, because it's quite easy to forget that the coasters in these games work on actual momentum. So unlike other coaster sims, where you can have as many hills as you like and make them as steep and the coaster will still go up, not in this game. Once you make that first drop, unless it's a very specific kind of coaster that you get later in the game, you got to make sure that you build your coaster in a way that very naturally lets it reach the goal with its momentum that it carries. Else you'll very ceremoniously come slowly trundling back down this steep hill that you've just made. So tweaking early parts of the track is actually possible, and that will inversely affect the later parts. But really, if you're having to edit the track to meet the brutally specific requirements of challenge mode, I'd say it's really just easier to just start again, honestly. And the building space for the coaster can be a bit limited at first, but you'll soon get better at adjusting to the amount of turn you need before reaching the outer walls. And the height limit is much more limiting, but I think you can increase that in the management mode. And certainly the other challenge modes will have a different height, I think. But the building of the coasters is the core of this game, and in all honesty it is very intuitive and lets you can make some incredible structures that weave and spin upside down, all angles. You can go nuts. It's really, really fun to mess with. Very impressive stuff. Also, worth remembering is the cart types is actually the thing that affects the coaster speed the most, so make sure you always change them to maximum, else you'll just be wasting your time like I probably did for like 3 hours. I don't know what station types do, but like, you know, you might as well select the best one as well, I guess. Now the third gameplay mode from the main menu is the viewer mode, which lets you view the pre-built coasters that exist in the game. There are 2 categories of them. One of them, I believe, is just like the default stuff that the staff included, but the manual claims that there's actually coasters made by players of like an older version of the game from Japan, because this game was originally part of a Japanese PS2 game series, I think called the Budget 2000 series. So that would have came out first, and obviously people made coasters for that, and it must have been popular enough that when they decided to localize the game, they took designs from, like, apparently, according to the manual, Japanese players' coaster designs and put them into the localization, which is really cool, and makes me wonder how they got the players' coasters in. Like, did they mail in their memory cards, or I don't know. I'd love to know. That's a really weird little bit in the manual that they just sort of casually mentioned, and it'd be very interesting to hear more about that, actually. Yeah, but this game was published in Europe over here by Midas, so a staple of the budget PS2 scene over here. And as far as I know, this game didn't get a US release. Although there's even an earlier version of this game that existed for Dreamcast that goes by a different name, but also by the same devs. So that might have been released in America, I'm not sure. But it's still quite funny that this budget PS2 roller coaster sim is actually quite a cool, like, sort of development cycle behind it. So going from Dreamcast to PS2 budget Japan only game to then budget European only localization with extra content that was coasters made by the Japanese players, it's very cool if that's true, that is. And obviously I'm gonna have to just show off some of these pre-made coasters because they are just fucking cool. Please enjoy. How are you doing? Come here much? Pretty cinematic, some of the camera shots for the viewing scenes. I think there's like 8 different camera angles, but they all give a really good overview of the coaster and the park, you know. You get to feel like a bit of a... get to feel like how maybe God would feel when looking down on us, except cooler because it's for theme parks and not people. But God, yeah, the amount of shit that happens to the poor tortured guests in these coasters is awesome. Oh my God, we can't have a single bloody ride without someone vomiting everywhere, pissing everyone else's pants, people going and missing, presumably dying too. Like surely people are dying because of this shit. Jesus Christ. I mean, look at those homies go. God damn, look at them go. And in the free walk mode, you can chat with these lovely guests of ours. The 2D guests are really weird looking, and their dialogue is just mind-breakingly stupid, but goddamn, I love this shit. But yeah, I will have to agree that this game definitely did kind of unsettle me as a kid. It's just got an odd, eerie. There's just something off with this game's atmosphere. I think it's the random and sudden park alerts and the game overs, you know. I mean, they're just so unexpected and they're so sudden with their warning. It's like you've really done something absolutely terrible, like, oh, how dare you not have 20 fucking restrooms on this one strip mall. Yeah, like some of the things it just says are so weird and perplexing and specific. It's like all these guests are just maddeningly in love with trash can centric theme parks, and yet they're also constantly very, very indecisive. But I guess the kind of off-kilter, uncanny vibe of the game is what really put me off for years, even with the coaster building being really good fun. Both that and the regular park management mode being the kind of thing that you can just sink your creativity into for hours on end. I still would recommend this game purely for its atmosphere, if nothing else, even though everything else in this game is honestly very fun. It really does feel like some sort of weird liminal space designer, you know. It doesn't even feel specifically like it's for theme parks sometimes, the way it has all skyscrapers and really generic looking buildings among all the theme park attractions. But yeah, this is the game I just sort of totally lose myself when I'm playing this. It's fun to just mess around with it, see what kind of different things you can make, try and make a park that feels believable, or make just like a regular like grass park. Just like go nuts. You can make anything really with these within the basic confines of the objects you're given. You can make just these so many possibilities for these terrifying, desolate, otherworldly hellscapes, removed as far from like a funfair as possible. But okay, let's cut the shit. The real reason I, and probably most people, were terrified of this game was the haunted house minigame, which is the only minigame, I might add. So it's the haunted house, and it's just like a maze. And it's just in like the game's free walk sections, but you have to walk through a maze, and it's just fucking terrifying. Like the sound design is genuinely uncomfortable. Like it is creepy. It's dark. You have no sense where you are going. There's like no map for these mazes. You know, you've just got to like walk around, stumble your way through, sort of dodge the ghosts, try and anticipate where they're coming from, just time your way around them. It's a fucking endurance, these sections, man. You make contact for too long with any of the ghosts, you're dead, game over, tough shit. But yeah, no map, so you've just got to sort of keep walking to like one direction, and just keep turning to the left and like slowly whittle your way down to the exit, or just like run in and just go anywhere and just like completely get lost. Like there's no way not to feel lost in this mode. And all you can do is move. All you're doing is walking from start to the exit, and it is very tense. You are constantly... Ghosts just come out the walls. They're very slow, but they will move towards you. if you're too close, so you've got to sort of move away from them to counter that. So it's just like this tense, very slow-paced trudge, like you're sneaking around all of them. Like, it is genuinely would make a good grounds for a horror game. And it just feels so out of place in this theme park sim. Like, I don't understand what this is doing here, but it is genuinely kind of unsettling, kind of creepy, kind of bad juju, bad energy all around. You know, the ghosts are fucking scary and there's blood on them, alright? I don't know how this ever got out as a game for kids, but like, it shouldn't have with this on it, no way. But yeah, it is actually genuinely creepy, and in its simplicity, it's a very tense, just like stealth section in a maze. It's freaking awful. And if you get to the end of level 10, guess what you get? You get a ticket that lets you ride every ride for free, as if the rides cost that much anyway. So it's completely useless, but oh well. But yeah, as a kid, this just fucking terrified me, and this is probably the reason I never touched this game for years. But now though, I can see that this game's atmosphere is just so empty, and I can understand why I saw that unsettling as a kid. Sort of the dead look of the park, it just clashes with like the loud, lively chatter and the screaming and the funfair sounds. Like, it just clashes so much and just contrasts and makes it feel like something. It's truly a ghost town. Like, there's sounds like there's things happening here, and there should be, but there's nothing. And the sporadicness of like the the alert sounds like put you on edge, man. There's no warning, you know. And like the low-res photos of real people standing around, like some sort of weird stalker might have taken them. The lack of things to really do as well, other than just like build the park, build a coaster, and then look around it. You know, the short background music loops that vary so wildly. This game, to put it simply, it's a budget PS2 game, and it has a jilted atmosphere. But that's what makes it so interesting, is because it just also happens to be a theme park sim, and that jilted atmosphere just carries into like it just contrasts with the idea of a theme park inherently. So it just comes across as, okay, you can sit here and you can build coasters, that's fun, and you can build a theme park if you want to, but it's always going to feel off. Like, it's just something uncanny, something unsettling and slightly dreamlike. Like, it really does feel, you get some mysterious energy from this game, and I do very much love that. It's just a captivating game for me, and ultimately I think it's the creativity that it gives you to just go ahead with anything you want, you know, the way it limits you a little bit as well. You can make anything. You can you don't need to make something that looks like a theme park. Funnily, you can just try and recreate other things in this very limited engine, and that's what's satisfying about it. Because all the placement options you have means you can put things anywhere with this very limited quantity of objects, and that limitation is really what makes it feel so creative. I'm sure there's some psychopath out there that could have probably recreated an entire neighborhood or a school or a town in this engine, but hopefully they haven't, you know. And no matter what you make, honestly, I bet it'll look pretty damn cool in the nighttime lighting, because goddamn, does the night exploration in this game just fucking look amazing. I love it. So, for how cheap this game is, if you come across a copy, I highly recommend checking it out. This is just a weird-ass, uncanny masterpiece of simplicity and brute force creative freedom. And again, I should emphasize how much the music actually adds to this game's strange, mysterious atmosphere. I've not mentioned it, but it is genuinely, there's some catchy tunes in here. There's some really nice relaxing background music. So, I decided, as a stupid challenge to myself, that I would make one park, or environment, or thing, or whatever the fuck you actually build in this game, one thing based upon every single music track in the game, and goddamn, I had quite a lot of fun. And so now, I present to you my compilation of things what I done made. Thank you, and good night.